We're going to do a couple things this morning. We're going to talk about some of our questions that we had. And then we are also going to discuss chicken people a little bit, which I would love to do. So although I know you're not all super awake, doesn't matter if we have this class for real live, I would still be asking questions and having conversations and discussions. And it doesn't matter if we have to wait a few seconds for people to answer. I get paid the same and you're just waking up. So no big deal, right? All right, let's look at our first one. And I'm going to try and do a screen share here. So let's see if that works for me for what I want to do today. Screen share, yes. Okay, here's what I want to screen share. So we'll share it. All right, are you seeing this right here? Can you see this? Anybody? Okay, good. All right, got a thumbs up. I needed it. This is the first time I'm doing it. So question is, what does this symbol mean to you? We're talking about culture, and we're talking about how some symbols are the same from culture to culture, and some symbols vary, and the meaning and symbolic meaning varies even within a culture. So we've got here, what does this symbol mean to you? Golden arches. And we've got 18 people yum and 16 people hell nah. This is the first time in a while that these numbers have been close, so we're pretty much split down the middle. All right. And next question, what does the middle light or the orange light in a stoplight mean to you? Stop, only one person said that. Slow down, 20. 12, go faster, quick. Now, let's talk about the reality of this question. How many people actually, now I know I asked, what does it mean? But I mean, what does it mean to you? I don't really think it means that 20 people actually slow down when they see an orange light. So, like, talk to me about this, because for a lot of people, and I think even more than 12, that yellow light means go faster, or that orange light means go faster. What do you think?
Well, I like put slow down because that's what you're supposed to do at a, orange light. But most of the time, I try to, get through it because I don't want to be stuck at a red light. Especially like where I'm from, the red lights are like actually an hour long. So, yeah.
Okay, so we know, right? We know what the correct answer is. Like, we know legally what the correct answer is, but as a culture, a lot of us interpret it differently, right? Who else? Anybody else? How about this? What's it mean when you do this? When you go through a yellow light, how many, do people actually do that? Yeah? You like, if you go through a yellow light, you like touch or hit the ceiling. It was funny because I remember there was a time, now they have, camera radars and things like that. And there was a time when Julie went through one and I got the piece of mail and it had the picture, right, of her. And she's driving the truck. She's like, ah, she's got her hand up on the ceiling and she's sailing through the red light. So she got home that night and I said, hey, for insurance purposes, you drive safe, right? She said, yeah, totally drive safe. And I said, you'd never blow through a yellow light, would you? She said, no, I would never do that. And I'm like, you'd never blow through a yellow light and celebrate it, would you? And she's like, no. And I showed her the picture of her celebrating it. I'm like, busted. So I think that's a lot of us, right? We can see the same symbol in a culture and be like, that doesn't resonate with me. I think it's totally different, right? So to me, this is pretty interesting. All right, let's go on to the next symbol and see how we feel about it. What does this symbol mean to you? The symbol would be a Confederate flag, which really wasn't, I don't even believe, used historically very much, if at all, for the South during battle. But what does it mean to you, or what do you think it means to you? Southern pride, 5 people. Racist ideology, 24. Leonard Skinner, 1. And get over it, you lost, the South lost like a long time ago, loser. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm not offending anybody because we're talking about people who seceded from the Union and then engaged in a war against their own country. So at this point, it's interesting because we might think that all people see it a certain way, but why did you choose what you chose? Because I can see how any of these answers would be legit if we're trying to keep that value neutral, open mind in as far as the symbol. What do you think? Why did you choose what you chose?
So I said South Pride
Mhm.
because I've been to the South multiple times and it really is part of their culture. I've talked to people from the South. I have family in the South, and they say whenever they see it, it's not really, they don't think about the Civil War. They think about their community, and it's kind of something they can relate to just being from the same place.
Yeah, so easy for us to see sort of geography because, you know, from the South, I have friends and family in the South as well, but from growing up for me in Chicago, this flag always only meant one thing: Civil War. Like there was no present sort of tense for that flag really to be used unless it was being used sort of aggressively, at least in my experience in the North. Now, I know that wasn't my experience of my family members that live in the South. All right, who else? Somebody says I chose racist ideology because it was the first one that came to my mind and more present today than I've realized. Yeah, certainly we could talk about, and we do, how culture is not stagnant and how things change, and how this flag is making a reappearance or a resurgence in popularity. Other people, why did you choose what you chose? And Leonard Skinner is that 70s band with like 3 guitar players. A lot of those guys died in an airplane crash, but a lot of their t-shirts and stuff like that would have the Southern flag on it. So other thoughts about why you chose what you chose?
I chose. Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I chose racist ideology because my friend currently, she just put up like a Black Lives Matter flag, like in the flag hole on her house, and then the day after she did that, then the Confederate flag just went up next to the house, like as in like opposing it.
Like the house next to them, or somebody put a Confederate flag in there?
No, they put it up right
Oh.
next to the house with the Black Lives Matter.
Wow. All right. So yeah, there are a lot of examples about how this particular symbol is used to terrorize people of color. Absolutely. I mean, on one hand, we can see how it's got a historical background, and on the other hand, it is almost, and in that scenario, an instant and direct racist response. Now, I mean, that would be my feeling. It might not be, but if you're taking a Black Lives Matter flag specifically and you're trying to rebuttal it, you could rebuttal it with an American flag. You could have a lot of choices here. I would say that a flag not used, by this country in a legitimate way would likely be seen as, interpreted as an attack of some sort. Absolutely. Good. Who else chose that, or whatever you chose, and why?
I chose racist ideology just because I know a lot of people see it as just a symbol of Southern pride, but the facts are that, when the Civil War was going on, it was about race, and it was deeply rooted in racism. And so regardless of how people see it today or choose to interpret it,
Sure.
It really is rooted in racism. And so that's why I chose that.
Yeah, let's not get caught up in states' rights. That was business that was added much later than that. The Civil War was about maintaining free labor on the backs of other human beings in the form of slavery. Primary, absolutely, and we can't rewrite that as if to say that the South was looking for something different at that time. They simply weren't. So good. All right. Excellent. Just some examples here, and there's so many different symbols. How about this? What was this originally? I know y'all know what this means now, but what did this symbol mean originally when it was first sort of flown or thrown? Anybody? Oh, good, Landon. Yeah, Landon, victory. Absolutely, V for victory. And I believe Winston Churchill used it. I know people go like this, and that's like the, Nixon thing as he's leaving after being impeached. Victory. But yeah, absolutely. So it starts from a pro-war, victory in war symbol, is reappropriated by an entire generation of people that are anti-war, or many people who are using in the anti-war movement, and it turns into peace. Wow, right? I mean, So as we look across the line at these symbols, culture to culture, it differs even within a particular culture. If you go to some places in the world and give them the thumbs up, it's the same as this, right? So that's, again, why we need to have like a sort of a better or a deeper cultural understanding, because of not everything is just how we interpret it or what we know about it as far as symbols that we exchange, okay? All right, good. Let's back down here. All right, good. What are some differences? Let me see between culture. We already did that. All right, so let's move on for a second. You're getting out of the chapter on culture. Are there any questions about the chapter on culture? We are going to do, and we didn't look at, so let's look at, I've got subculture and counterculture. Let's talk about that quickly, okay? So subculture, you know, would be those segments of society that somehow set apart a certain group of people. Maybe that's Star Wars nerds, maybe that's band geeks, maybe that's surfers or snowboarders. And if you're in a particular subculture, you're going to have some kind of knowledge, like intimate knowledge of language, of the things that are part of it. So what's a subculture that you belong to? A group that shares interests, has specific knowledge. It might be regionally or geographically. It might be within your friend group. What do you think? What's a subculture you belong to? Because everybody belongs to many.
So I go running sometimes, so I guess I could like belong to that subculture of people.
Absolutely. So just a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I started doing emceeing, so announcing and making all the announcements at the green events races. Has anybody done a green events race? They're a really fabulous organization in town. They do like a equinox race. They do a Father's Day race, a 4th of July race. Obviously those races now, you know, they put a halt on them because of how many people. But I remember being there for the first time and somebody's like, oh, I got my PR. And I'm like, what? And there was all sorts of terms that runners used from these races that I had no idea. Now, what's PR for anybody who's a cross-country runner in here?
Personal record.
Yeah, personal record. And at the same time I started doing those races, my son got into cross-country. So it was hilarious because within the same couple months, I went from never attending a race, no interest in watching people run, really, to tell you the truth. Certainly no interest in running myself. But my son started running, and I started working these events and got really, you know, involved in running culture and the subculture of runners. Sports fans, absolutely. That could be a great subculture. Game of Thrones fans, sure. Honor student, yep. Midwest, sure. People from the Midwest, or maybe even like folks from Minnesota, hey, so we're going to take a little cheesy hot dish and we're going to go down by Lake Mille Lacs. I heard the fish are really biting down there, right? So that's where my partner's from, Minnesota. So subculture of that. Okay, great. How about snowboarders? Are there any snowboarders in this class or people that do snow sports of any sorts? What would some terms be? Because I'm going to level with you. Just like I don't run, I don't ski or snowboard, okay? My kids do all that. I'm from Illinois. What kind of, I don't know, maybe I have lived here for 20 years, I guess. So I probably had my chance. Pow pow. What? All right. So you're going to go shred some gnarly pow pow, bro. Okay. So gnar. All right. So there's a couple words. Pow pow, gnar. What are some other terms that I might not know of? And I know I saw some people shaking their heads, Caitlin. What are some skiing or snowboarding terms I might not? Freshies on the groomies.
Well, there's corn when like the snow is like very fresh. It's like called a corn.
Corn?
Yeah, it's like it's a nice like consistency.
Yeah.
There's different types of like there's like pizza. It's like when you like for beginners like you would do pizza like down the mountain. It's like when you're like your feet are like that. Yeah.
Oh, so it's a way to like see if people are beginners.
Yeah.
Is there a term for the people that come skiing from Texas that have jeans on? Certainly people have got to have a term for that. Jerry?
Yeah, they're called Jerry's.
What's Jerry?
It's like,
am I in trouble here? Are we in some?
It's like an individual who thinks they know what they're doing, but they don't.
All right. Individual who's that named after?
Jerry of the Day. It's like a social media page.
I'm fine not knowing that. And I'm also fine knowing that now. Okay. So then I have heard, though, of a term called a smoke shack. And since I'm not part of this snowboarding subculture, I don't really understand. I don't really understand it. Could somebody explain to me what that is? Has anybody heard of that? You know, you're not incriminating yourself. You would just know this knowledge or have heard of that. Jacob, I feel like you know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure. Only because you're smiling.
A smoke shack?
Yeah, I've had students in previous semesters tell me that there are these places like little huts or shacks where people go while they're snowboarding to puff cannabis, and they actually leave cannabis for other people who might show up at these shacks.
I've never heard of it.
Cabin in the middle of Ski Mountain in the woods. Well, I'm glad then that I told you about that. That my other students told me, so now you know that those things exist. Good. All right. So all of these subcultures, though, like, and what we're doing is it's in relation to counterculture. And counterculture are groups or small groups of people whose beliefs widely oppose those values and beliefs that we have in society. Okay? So what are some example of some counterculture groups? Because that is way different than subculture. And I've got those slides in my lecture, right? You know, subculture, counterculture, and it goes down the line. It's got a cheerleader, it's got some skinheads. What do you think? What would be some countercultures? Somebody typed in KKK. Yeah, absolutely. White supremacist organizations in the year 2020. Although some people support those, that's not the overwhelming sense of values and beliefs of the country. Certainly not in the year 2020, or at least with a majority. So counterculture still would be white supremacists, skinheads, KKK. You could also do this. Pretty much covers it all. What else? What else? Another countercultural groups. And how do I pronounce that? QAnon? I have no idea. Okay, well, we're just gonna go with that. And these are like the conspiracy theory folks. Is that right? I'm not trying to lump them together, but counterculture, I think that they resist science and knowledge platforms by proposing outlandish or conspiratorial types of ideas instead. I just saw a firefighter the other day, a video of a firefighter going off to many sides, like conservative and liberal and whatever, like Antifa and QAnon and Boogaloo Boys. And he's like, you need to stop the conspiracy theories. The reason that the forest is burning is not some dreadful conspiracy. It's because of climate change, because people aren't shutting their fires down and power lines that aren't buried, stuff like that. But okay, I'm going to accept that now, that QAnon or whatever is on the radar. Who else or what other kinds of groups would be countercultures?
Maybe flat earthers or like occultists.
2020. Flat earthers. Yeah, I mean, I can't even, of course I'm going to make fun of that. Come on, like, you know, we're positive. I mean, if flat earth is your thing, yikes. Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. Flat earthers. See, this is a list. We already have like 2 things on the list that we've never put sort of on our list before. So I like that. Maybe hippies in the 1960s who were anti-war movement, right? And you had a draft going on, and so they were opposing these ideas put out by mainstream society. Sure, and maybe with the drug use, now not so much, right? Cannabis wouldn't be really very countercultural, even in states where it's not completely legal because of, you know, such widespread use amongst such a diverse, you know, segment of the population. Good, okay. So know the differences between those. And I've got that slide, and I'm not sure where it is right now, but it's in chapter 3, and I've got a bodybuilder, like a really, really, really intense bodybuilder. I've got a grandma, and she's at a cannabis protest for legalizing cannabis. How about grandma? My grandma at a cannabis protest for legalizing cannabis. Counterculture or subculture? Because it's not as easy as some of the ones we're talking about before.
Well, it depends on the demographic, like where she is. If she's in a place where it's legalized, it would be just a subculture. If she's in a place where it's not, then it would be counterculture.
Absolutely. Good. Excellent. Like manifest and latent functions, you know, like other things that we're going to be learning about this semester. Sometimes one of the reasons I love social is because oftentimes there's a yin and a yang piece, right? Or at least two things that you're looking at. So the one is subculture, the other is counterculture. How about that bodybuilder? The one that's like super, 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 super ripped. Counterculture or subculture? This is another interesting one. What do you think? Any bodybuilders in here or a part of that culture? I've sort of fallen off a bit in the last few years, but.
So I don't know if this would be right, but here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It would be a subculture if like you're in a place where some people like run, some people lift, and then you have people who are like hardcore, then it would be a subculture. But it'd be a counterculture if you have someone who's like, I don't know, that seems really iffy for your body. I'm just going to do it more natural, and you're kind of being out there.
Sure, a little bit, but you started to get towards it at the end there. And maybe what you're getting at is the difference between bodybuilding and improving your strength and using drugs to do so. So maybe bodybuilders that are natural are subculture, maybe those that use drugs are counterculture, but not specifically, as I've come to learn from my students last semester, because apparently there are bodybuilding competitions where that drugging thing, the doping thing, is okay. Like they know that they're doping, and those competitions are specifically for that. So doping might be like and I don't know if that's the right term, but
yeah, like if you look at the Arnold Classic or any of like the Mr. Olympia stages, those are all untested like organizations. And in my opinion, the natural bodybuilding is a counterculture to the untested bodybuilding, because there's like steroid use and anabolics is so like prevalent in bodybuilding that it's almost impossible to find a federation that's completely tested and natural. So that's why I think that natural is actually counterculture.
Okay, so when something goes so far the other way, yeah, great, Brandon, absolutely, awesome. So obviously the status, right, of a group, whether it's counterculture or subculture, depending on the behavior of that group and how it changes over time, also plays a big role in it. All right, let's move on to the chapter on culture. Exam is over, chapters 1, 2, and 3. It's Friday. Let's talk about chicken people now. I've wanted to do this. I love it. I'm excited about it. I wouldn't just show you films that are weird if they didn't have a lot of great, sociology to them. So I'll do what I do if we were just together in a big room, and I'll just say, chicken people, give me your reactions. And then we'll start to pick out more specific types of sociological observations.
I think it's just crazy to think how people can use chickens to get out of a place where they're at, almost to the point like where we would use dogs. I think that's just a crazy thing to think about, just because we're not used to that.
Yeah, for many people, chickens are food. And not only that, but they grow them in the worst of conditions where you're not even allowed to see them from the chicken producers. So there's farmers that will take on a Tyson contract. They'll have these covered chicken houses. They are prevented from showing people what goes on, period, in those things. So, it's not very humane at the very least. Sure. So we think of those type of relationships with dogs, but these people are having those types of relationships. Oh, you've got a dog right there. But people think of those relationships, I believe, as, maybe we hold that for dogs and cats, but people can have that with chickens too. We've had chickens here in the farm, and beforehand, before I got to move to the farm for like 6 or 7 years, we've had chickens for 11 years. So I've seen the personality of like of like so many hundreds of different chickens, and they are all so very, very, very different. There's if you're not around them, you wouldn't know that. Good. Other observations from the movie?
Well, I didn't know there were so many different types of chickens, honestly, and I didn't know like there are so many qualifications for a perfect chicken, and it was just really, really weird to me, but also really entertaining, because it's like I didn't know a chicken's tail, like it's like certain features are so important. It's so funny.
Yeah, I really didn't either. Now we have so many chickens. So we've got LaFletches and LaFleurs and Leggeds, and I can't even remember them. White Sussex, speckled Sussexes, and Barred Rocks, and Cochins, and some of them have like furry, feathery feet, and some of them are like mini. There was like this mini chicken the other day. I don't know its name because we got some really exotic chickens from a friend that just couldn't do it anymore. And it's the tiny little chicken, like this big, and she kept coming in the garage the other day while I was cleaning the garage, and I just went down with one hand and picked her up, and she didn't care, and she's just like looking at me, and I was holding this chicken on my hand, and she's like, "What's up?" And I was like, because I don't know any of these chickens, are relatively new to the farm, and I was like, wow. And you could set it on the shelf, you could like put it on your shoulder. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of different types of chickens, and of course there's roosters. And somebody said the other day in class, what is a rooster? They're like, I'm sorry, I don't know what a rooster is. Is that a boy chicken? Yes. Rooster would be a male chicken. And yeah, we actually inherited 2 previous cockfighting roosters that were rescued on our farm, and one of them goes above my knee, and his name is El Jefe. And I'm absolutely not kidding. His legs are like silver dollar sized. He's the largest chicken rooster I've ever seen in my life. He was here 4 years ago, and he's still here now. So still kicking it on the farm, and super friendly. People also asked yesterday if roosters were all mean, or if chickens were mean. And if a chicken is mean, that's kind of that chicken's deal, depending. But if we get a mean chicken that would peck a kid or somebody that comes over to the farm, or a rooster, we just take it on a long drive down a gravel road, and I just say, good luck with that. See you later. All right, other things from this movie that stand out to you. Photographic evidence of El Jefe. I'll get it.
I felt bad for the chickens. And I think for me, it was like, it felt kind of personal, because I've had a lot of struggles with my body image, like existing as someone who identifies as female in a patriarchal society and all of that stuff. So I found myself like feeling really sorry for the chickens and being like, you don't have to be perfect. You're beautiful just the way you are. And like all of that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I truly, when I watched this movie, as someone who's had chickens for 11 years, I've never thought, the arch of your back is perfect. Like I'm not, never really like anything like that. So yeah, like maybe there's something about human beings with these kind of competitions and stuff like that, putting some of their hang-ups on animals or something like that. Yeah, good. And body image, certainly a thing in there. Other impressions of this movie, the people that did it or that scene, things that stand out to you.
I really agree with Allie, because, like, who are we to judge a perfect chicken? Like, there's no perfect humans, so if it walks like a chicken and it looks like a chicken, then, like, it's a chicken. So, who are we to judge?
But not to these folks, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's a whole subculture of people that is like, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. But it's not. There are perfect chickens. So, yeah, okay, I agree. On one hand, chicken's a chicken. And on the other hand, not to this subculture of folks. They're pretty serious. I mean, they're pretty serious about it, right? Like, how many times are you going to wash and blow dry a chicken's butt? That's some impressive stuff, because chickens poop all the time. All the time. You pretty much are going to be like, get it back to the cage, and then take it back for a butt blow dry. Take it back to the cage, take it back. Okay, who else? Things that stood out to you.
That's actually one of the things that stood out to me. Oh, sorry.
No, you're totally good.
Okay. One of the things that stood out to me was how like all-consuming it was. Like how long they spent like grooming the chickens, and how long they spent like trying to perfect them. I thought that was kind of like insane.
Good. Who else had something?
So I really thought about like pageant shows the whole time I was watching it. like the show Toddlers with in tiaras, because a lot of times like the moms in that show would do crazy things and be like, oh, you need to put makeup on, and it's like a 4-year-old child. So that's what I kind of related it
I've
to.
not seen that. It's called Toddlers and Tiaras.
Mhm.
I'm going to
It's
tell
on
you what,
YouTube.
I don't know if I can handle that. I have 2 kids, and I think I would watch that for about 5 minutes and be like, child abuse, done. But that's, again, my set of values, you know, and maybe not. Maybe that's just subculture of folks that I just don't understand. But yeah, interesting. All right, specific things that stood out to you, specific scenarios with any of the people that they were following or anything like that. Daria?
Well, one thing I want to add, first of all, I love your band, yes. And secondly, what stood out to me was that a lot of the people, well, one of the persons I remember in particular, she used this opportunity to escape like from her drinking habits. And then I remember the other person, he used it as an escape also, or like a safe space from past experiences and trauma. Like he said, he was bullied in high school, so that was kind of his safe space. So yeah.
Yeah, let's go with Brian. Brian, right? That's not the other Brian, race car Brian, but show choir Brian, right? Did you see my show choir move? That's because I was in show choir 20-some years ago, 28 years ago. Yep. Bring it in. Hey, anyway. Right? So definitely bullied. Talked about his experience in high school. Not a good experience for him. And for lots of people, for that, you know, lots of people, not a good experience. And so he kind of turned, to those chickens and to being able to do the chickens in the shows. And I'll tell you what, have you ever just met somebody that just has that kind of luck or life? What I mean by that is, right, what did they tell him about his chicken towards the end? That was like heartbreaking to me. What was their comment about why his chicken didn't move to the next round? And it was beyond belief for me. Anybody remember?
Too perfect, right?
Yeah,
Too
Eva.
perfect.
Too perfect. Oh my God, the guy the whole time is just trying to get somebody to cut him a break for all of this work that he does. And finally the judge says, yep, this one's too perfect. I mean, that guy is just having a rough go, right? So yeah, the chickens were a space that was safe. They were creatures that loved him unconditionally. I mean, what's one of the reasons that we love dogs? I mean, you can be having the worst day of your life and acting the worst you've ever acted, and your dog is still going to be like, what's up? I love you. You'll be like, I'm a jerk. And the dog's going to be like, just love me. Right? Boba's our little Boston Terrier. I could be like, you've been rolling in horse poop. She escaped again last night, went to the neighbors, rolled in horse poop. Right? And I'm yelling at her and she's looking at me like, I love you, Alpha. I'm so sorry. Right? And I'm just like, ah. So yeah, unconditional love with animals can come from chickens, come from horses. It can come from goats, hedgehogs. I mean, seriously. Okay, good. What else stands out maybe about the other 2 individuals?
Well, I was just gonna say really quickly about that guy.
Sure.
Brian, whatever. Like the fact that he like chose the chickens over his like job, and like he lost his job because of the chickens, that was just like really crazy to me, because I was like, so you'd rather not get paid but like do something that you love, but like I guess like it's understandable. But
yeah, I don't want to diss on the job he had, but yeah. He's like, this is where singers go to die. I mean, you might want to quit that job. That's probably going to still work out for you, right? But yeah, like choosing that over money. Interesting when everybody's paying tens of thousands of dollars to go to college, right? And so many of you in this class will get trained and pay tens of thousands of dollars to do something, and will get into that, field and be like, I hate this. Like, what am I doing? Right? So yeah, interesting choice that he made. So let's get back to the other 2, Brian, the race car guy, or the mom who's a recovering alcoholic. I see here one thought, this is from you, is that his chickens took up too much time to have a relationship. So I think that was Brian, right? He did have a relationship, kind of like one in his life. That was his one big relationship. And she was also a huge chicken fan, right? Chicken person. Because she's at these competitions afterwards. You can kind of see him interacting with her as much as he can. You know, it's like kind of weird, of course, kind of like that would be. But yeah, not enough time for a relationship. Tell me about Brian's approach. Because Brian, the race car driver's approach, way different than the other approaches. What was so different about his approach to chickening?
He was a little more of like a mass producer, and like he assigned numbers to all of them and then really remembered the other traits that popped up, while the girl and the other Brian were a little bit more personal.
Yeah, look, science. He can trace back through all the fathers and all the moms, every single number, every single chicken, and he remembers every single trait. And when you're breeding, and going for what he's going for, that's how you do it, right? But he also approached his job like that, right? What was his job?
Race car, like fixing? Was it fixing?
Like, yeah, he built like super drag racing not stock cars maybe, but drag racing engines, like the most high performance engine you can possibly make. And you got to get every single little thing out of that engine to get that extra half a second. Sounds just like his chickens, doesn't it? It's like exactly like how he approached chickens. What was the really interesting gender piece in his family? Because there was something that was really, really cool going on gender-wise there, or different things that as a sociologist, you'd be like, what's going on there?
Didn't his wife race the cars instead of him?
Your mic is really low. But yes, his mom, right? His mom and dad, his dad was the racer. Then his mom drove once and turned out that she could drive the cars way better than the dad. Did the dad seem bummed out by it? No, he's sitting there in the kitchen. He's like, she could drive faster. That was the last time I drove a race car. So all of a sudden they flipped roles. And I know that this is like a different thing because is there just maybe one NASCAR driver that identifies as the gender female? I mean, maybe one or two or something like that. So it's still not just for when he's describing it, especially then in the 70s and 80s. I mean, there had to be a lot of prejudice and discrimination against her as a driver, I would imagine. But yeah, mom's the race car driver. He's involved in that. And again, these chickens are really a big part of his life. Now, I've been known to cry at every single Marvel movie ever. And that's just a starting point. That's just superhero movies. You get a little fake CGI tree and you play some James Taylor or something like that, I'm going to be bawling in about 1 second. Not to mention any other movie that's actually like designed to do that. But there was a really great moment with him and his mentor where we get to see just how uncomfortable males are at expressing love to other males. To me, that was really interesting. Can anybody talk about kind of what that exchange was towards the end of this thing and what his mentor meant to him, that whole business?
His mentor was like the one that got him into like chicken competitions, and he didn't even know about it before. And so like he tried to give him like something to like say like thank you, but like the interaction was very emotionless, even though he wanted it to be sentimental.
Oh, yeah. You just said it in a great way. You know, he's giving him like a ceramic chicken water or something, I think, and just that he started off with, and he's passing it on to him. I have goosebumps right now. And he gives it to him, and he's just standing there, and he's like really uncomfortable, and he's like, this is great. And they almost go to hug. But, you know, I'm watching that, and I start crying almost every time. And let me tell you why. From my perspective, I think that when we look at this semester, and we will at gender inequality, I think that it's really important to understand that people who identify as genders that are either non-binary or as the gender female are oftentimes, most of the time, receiving a great deal more pressure and more discrimination. That being said, can you wrap your head around for a second if your gender piece was that you were told not to feel emotions or show them. I mean, we don't think about that often with people who identify as males, but good Lord, is there anything, there's probably a lot of stuff worse, but to me, to not be able to show like emotion and love towards other men or in those situations, it's something that we need to look at, because that's a serious piece about gender right there. Is you could tell that they both wanted to express this deep, long-standing love and admiration for each other, within a culture that simply does not allow for that. So yeah, I think a really interesting piece and an awesome piece for him as well, and something for us to think about as far as gender. All right, let's talk lastly maybe about the recovering alcoholic, and I cannot remember her name right now. But anything that stands out to you about her in this, or her approach to it, or something like that?
I really loved the moment that she had with Knox towards the end when she wins, and he's just immediately like, "You won." Like, he's so happy for her towards the end there. As soon as she wins, there's like no like malice or anything. He's just fully in support of her.
Isn't that awesome? It is. And I mean, you can tell, right? When we're competing with other people, which in this culture is pretty much when you roll out of bed in the morning to brush your teeth, you can tell when somebody's genuinely happy for you and they're a competitor and they're like, you did it this time, right? Or when they're just like, congratulations, right? Like that's a tough one. Like, there's a place where my son used to play basketball out in Windsor called Power to Play. And not a big fan of that place, and not a big fan of the rules that they've implemented. And the owner recently implemented a rule where, to avoid confrontation, they are no longer doing the handshake thing at the end, where you tell the other team good game. You know what I'm talking about? Does everybody in here know what I'm talking about? At the end, you get in two lines and you go past each other. Now, raise your hand or show a little thumbs up if you've ever been part of one of those lines. All right? Okay? Now, are people saying just good game, you're a great person in those lines? No, everybody's joking, right? It's like, good game, F you. Good game, screw you. Good game, I hate you. Good game, I'll kill you. But here's why I oppose saying, oh, well, people will get in confrontations. Mostly it's just the adults, first of all, the parents that can't keep their act together. Secondly, here's my deal. If you can't build the integrity to look a person in the face that you have competed with and at least look them in the eyes, then I don't think that's worth much if you can't do that, right? And so I think that's like a value, a cultural value or belief that I have, like from grade school. And like I said, competing is a big deal. When I was coaching kids basketball, I was coaching a second grade team, and they determined that they don't keep score in second grade, and the parents were freaking out. And the parents were like, how are we going to know who wins? And I'm like, anyway, I didn't say that. I was just like, well, it's going to be a good game, blah, 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 blah. First game, second graders, I'm sitting on the bench, and this kid looks over at me and says, Coach, how are we doing? And I look over at him, I'm like, we're doing pretty good, Colin. And the kid next to him is like, we're doing 8-4. Like, that was his response. Like, so the thought is, first of all, we come from a very competitive culture. The other thing is, how as adults do we compete through our kids? The other idea is, do we really think that kids can't add at that second grade? There's some trouble if they can't, because these kids knew exactly what the score was. They weren't fooled by just saying we can't keep track of points. They'd be like getting done crushing a team 20-2, and they would know it was 20-2. I mean, yeah. All right. So yeah, how we compete in this culture, he was genuinely excited for her. And, what was one more thing or something that her daughters said about her as far as her pets, her chickens, and her path to recovery?
Her daughters were saying that like they found it really weird that like her new hobby would be to like take care of chickens and like breed them like that, but they were just happy that she found like a good coping mechanism that wasn't dangerous for her.
Yeah, and they were really honest, right? I mean, they were like, we'd come home, she'd be drunk already in the morning or the early afternoon. There was nothing getting done. The family was a shambles. And now they're like, so she took over one building with her chickens and 2 buildings and 3 buildings, but mom's there for us, right? Like, this has altered her life. And I think when you're struggling with addiction, there are many different ways that you can find your way out of that, and many different ways that you cannot. So I think that to find a mechanism like that works for her, it might not be the average person who's struggling with addictions like method or way to go about it, but successful for her, giving her extra meaning and something to do. My wife and I talk, or my partner and I talk about that. That's my wife too, but we talk about that frequently. In terms of, she's an artist and I'm a musician. So neither one of us just come home from our job, and we're both farmers. Neither one of us just come home and we're like, okay, let's watch TV all night. We're like, okay, now it's time to do that other thing that we do, right? So for some people, maybe the job is that thing. For other people, there might be skills or talents or a calling that you have that you sort of have to pursue, or whatever that might be. But its role as a mechanism in being able to, help somebody's life dramatically, pretty cool. All right. Seemed like the chickens were almost a replacement for addiction. Yeah, absolutely. She was pretty cute when she was washing the chickens in the sink. If you've never done that, it is pretty funny. Like, the second you get chickens under warm water, first of all, you can't have a bunch of chickens outside in the rain if they're all trying to get into a coop, or if they can't, because they will actually, and turkeys do this more, they will look up at the rain and they will drown. Yeah, in the rain, just like right there. They're not, turkeys are levels dumber than, it goes chickens, turkeys, ducks. Ducks are way down here on the list. They are absolutely the dumbest. And I'm sorry for any duck fans out there, but just this, I've had years of research here, and that's just the deal. Okay. Chickens, smart? Oh, you bet. All right. Any other things about chicken people before we call it today? I woke up, was doing stuff, opened up a few questions for us to finish out that chapter on culture about race relations and things like that. So please check Tophat. During COVID, I purchased 3 baby ducks. Do you have a place for them, Mackenzie?
Yeah, we had a family friend that he now has 15 ducks and I think 20-something chickens. But it was more of a why not purchase, but no, we had a place for them.
Awesome. Well, I mean, every spring, right? That kind of happens. Every spring, people reach out to us after Easter, and they're like, I have extra baby ducks and baby chicks. Because everybody's like, what a good idea for Easter to get people these tiny animals, and they have no idea how to take care of them. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
There is an influx of animals that want to come to our farm, and after 2 years, we learned to stop just taking people's animals.
Yeah, they ran into a big problem with it too, especially during COVID and when we first went into quarantine, because it also became a TikTok trend to buy all these ducks, but then people were buying all these baby ducks and chicks and had no idea how to take care of them.
I am not often speechless, but you have almost just rendered me speechless. For all the things that trend on TikTok, buying baby ducks was a thing on TikTok?
Yeah, no, it was really, really bad because all these we knew how to take care of them and we had a place for them the whole time.
Sure.
But no, there were they sold these ducks and baby chicks to literally any kid that had money for them and would buy the feeders, all that stuff for them. No, I can even send videos. It was a whole trend during COVID and quarantine.
Oh, you please do. So I want to see one of those videos, because wow. Well, human beings. That's why we study human beings, right? That's why we're looking at things so
exactly.
Bizarre. I have nothing else. I have nothing else about that. Mostly on TikTok, I just dance in my, underwear around the house, and nobody seems to watch. So I guess I quit TikTok a long time ago. I don't know. I see so many people shaking their heads. All right. Anything else about chicken people? I will produce perhaps a video of El Jefe and I maybe hanging out together. I guess I gotta go look. The truth is I haven't seen El Jefe. I haven't seen him for a while, but I'm sure he's around. I think he's around. I have 120 chickens. There's 118 of them that I haven't seen around. They're all around, but to pick out the specific ones, which I know most of them, But yeah, I'll produce a picture of El Jefe for you all so that you know I'm telling the truth. He's a stud. I'm just going to say it. He is. All right. Anybody else? Any questions about the exam? Anything else? I just saw the most amazing video of Paul Rudd today trying to connect with millennials and Gen Z using terms like thick that I use inappropriately to get people to mask up. It's hilarious. If you have not seen this Paul Rudd video, please find it. It's a masking video, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. So I hope you're all staying safe and being good out there. And just remember this. Look, I keep seeing friends of mine post pictures, and they're doing some backyard concerts. We have actually done a couple of backyard concerts out here, but we're really, really strict about masking, and we have very few people. But let's admit that when you're around people partying with a mask on your neck, that is not doing it right. Okay, so try and do it right. We need you to, and I need you to, so I appreciate that, everybody. Try and do it right. And the test is timed. It'll be, I think, an hour long or between 50 minutes and an hour long. That would technically be 55, but I'll probably give an hour just so that you can do it. 2 questions. So look for that. We'll make some announcements about it. Yua, there's always a password, right? So there'll be a password. We're going to make that in announcements. It's like, so again and again and again, I can't, stress it enough. Make sure you're going to announcements. Okay. If there's a broken link, we'll put up a new link in announcements. If there's any like paper feedback across the board, we'll put it there. Yes, there are going to be videos and other things there. Now, no, it's 50 questions, 2 points apiece. 2 questions, 50 points each. That would be sweet, though. Let me think about that. Too good to be true. Yeah, it's only multiple choice, maybe true false. Might be a couple true falses in there. I mean, and here's the deal. Look, we go through the exams afterwards, and if a majority of people missed a question, oftentimes we'll give 2 points back. Because, like, if you've ever had a teacher that's just like, this is the most perfect multiple choice test in the world, they're lying. You can't write the most perfect multiple choice test in the world. It's inherent in kind of the way that multiple choice tests are written. So if we write an exam, we think it's a good exam, we all look at it, we give feedback, we give it to you, and then maybe it's not perfect. So that's how that goes. If there's any discrepancies, we'll look across the board and add a couple points to everybody. Or if there's 2 questions that are just jacked up or a repeat or something like that. Did you say we'll have some time on Saturday to do it as well? Yeah, let's open it Friday morning and go till noon on Saturday, something like that. Yua's going to take care of that, so she's fantastic. Yep, we do have some on Saturday. That's all right. All right, any other questions, everybody? All right, go out in this world and be good people and do good things and mask up and eat your vegetables and treat people right. And what's that thing? It's be good people and do good things. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.